You know that feeling, right? You know exactly what you want to say, but the word, it just vanishes. Or hey, maybe you've been through the absolute agony of a migraine. And what about that stubborn physical swelling that just won't go down? I mean, these things sound completely different, totally unrelated. But what if they're not?
Okay, so picture this. You're in a meeting, maybe you're telling a great story to a friend, and bam, your brain just hits a wall. The idea, the whole concept, it's right there, crystal clear in your head, but the actual word, it's gone, just out of reach. It's so frustrating, like an internal short circuit.
And then there's the migraine. And we're not talking about just a bad headache here, are we? No, this is a full-blown, all-consuming neurological event. It's that throbbing, just debilitating pain that feels like your head is under this incredible pressure, pushing from the inside out.
And let's round this out with physical swelling. Think about something like lymphedema, where the body's whole fluid balance just gets thrown out of whack. It's a clear sign that the internal drainage systems aren't working right, and you get this visible physical backup.
So, let's recap. We've got a missing word, a brutal migraine, and a swollen limb. That's a language problem, a brain problem, and a body problem. So, what in the world is the hidden connection here? How could they possibly be linked? Well, the answer is actually found in this really powerful analogy for two fundamental states of being in our bodies. It all boils down to one simple but really profound idea: flow, and its opposite, blockage. And we're going to explore this whole idea using two really cool concepts. The first is fascia, that represents healthy, totally unimpeded flow. And its opposite is aphasia, which stands for rupture and, you guessed it, blockage. And trust me, this isn't just about language. This is a model for how our entire system is designed to work. Okay, so let's start on the positive side of things, right? Let's talk about fascia. What does it actually mean to be in this state of healthy, dynamic flow?
So on a deep level, fascia is way more than just talking. It's the successful expression of your consciousness. It's that beautiful moment when your internal thoughts just flow out freely and become speech, creating meaning in the world. It's a state of perfect, dynamic balance.
So what does this flow actually look like inside our bodies? Well, the perfect physical model for it is the fascia network. Now, this isn't just some passive wrapping tissue, no way. It's this amazing, interconnected, fluid-filled web that's communicating constantly. It's a shock absorber. It's part of our immune system, and it even translates physical force into biological signals. It is the literal physical embodiment of fascia, a system in perfect, eloquent flow. Okay, so now let's flip the coin. What happens when that beautiful flow gets disrupted? Well, that's when we enter a state of aphasia, a state of blockage. Aphasia, the word literally means without speech. It's a breakdown. Remember that feeling we talked about of knowing the word but not being able to say it? Well, this is that feeling taken to a clinical extreme. The thought is just trapped inside your mind with no way to get out into the world. It's a profound existential rupture. So, how can we actually picture a blockage like this in the physical body? The perfect model for this is our lymphatic system. I mean, its whole job is to be the body's drainage network. So when it fails, we get a crystal clear physical example of aphasia in action. And what's so fascinating is that this system can break down in two totally different ways. You can have a chronic structural failure, or you can have a temporary functional blockage. Okay, and the difference between these two is absolutely crucial. So a hypoplastic blockage, that's a structural problem. Think of it like the city was built with drainage pipes that were just too small from day one. It's a design flaw. But an acute blockage, that's functional. The pipes are the right size, they're perfectly fine, but a chemical signal suddenly creates a massive traffic jam that shuts the whole highway down.
And this brings us right back to migraines. So, during a migraine attack, levels of this one specific protein, called CGRP, start to go up. And you can think of this protein as a signal that tells other proteins on the brain's lymphatic vessels to literally, and I mean literally, rearrange themselves and form a tight seal. It's like zipping up a waterproof jacket, and this zipper physically blocks fluid from draining out of the brain.
And that blockage, that tiny molecular zipper, brings us to the final incredible step of this whole analogy. This is where we connect the physical plumbing of the brain directly back to our ability to speak. Okay, so here's how the logic works. Step 1. Language is a super complex, delicate process. It needs a perfectly healthy, clean environment to work properly. Step 2. The lymphatic system? That's the cleanup crew, right? It drains away waste and keeps that environment healthy. Step 3. The problem. A blockage, like that CGRP zipper, causes a fluid backup. It creates stress on the whole environment. So the big idea, the hypothesis, is that this purely physical stress is what messes with a highly complex function like producing language.
So, where does that leave us with our original mystery? What's the thread that ties together the missing word, the killer migraine, and the physical swelling?
It's this. The hidden connection is the fundamental principle of flow versus blockage. It's phasia versus aphasia. It doesn't matter if it's a thought struggling to become a word or fluid struggling to drain from your brain, the underlying logic is exactly the same. Systems thrive on flow, and they break down when there's a blockage.
You can sum the whole thing up in this one really powerful idea. The brain's ability to speak, its state of phasia, might depend directly on its ability to drain, to maintain that absolutely crucial state of flow. And that just leaves us with one last thought to chew on. If this simple principle governs our bodies from the cellular all the way up to the philosophical level, where else does it show up? I mean, think about it. Creative inspiration, communication in a relationship, the flow of traffic in a city, the economy. What else in our world is really just governed by this hidden logic of flow versus blockage? Welcome to The Explainer. Today we're going to do something a little different, a bit of a thought experiment. We're going to take a concept from the super abstract world of number theory and use it as a surprising lens to understand a fundamental pattern in our own biology. It's a story about a hidden model for how things either hold together and flow or break apart and get stuck.
So let's just jump right in with a single guiding question. Now, I know it might seem a little out there, but the answer reveals this fascinating framework for how systems, whether they're abstract numbers or living things, either achieve coherence or just fall into chaos.
All right, so where does this journey begin? Well, it's not in a biology lab, that's for sure. We're starting in the pure, totally logical universe of mathematics. We are on a search for perfect, elegant order. Those super rare moments where a really complex system seems to resolve into clean, simple harmony. And to find that harmony, we're going to need a guide, a kind of map for this journey. And for us, that map is one very specific, very special equation that shows us the crucial difference between a system that works and one that just collapses.
And here it is, the Ramanujan-Nagle equation. Yeah, I know it looks a little intense, but trust me, the question it's asking is actually pretty simple. And for what we're talking about today, the implications are just massive. Let's break down what it's really looking for.
So you can think of this equation as a kind of puzzle. It's basically asking this. When you plug in any whole number for n into that formula, 2 to the power of n minus 7, does the answer turn out to be a perfect square? But here's the key. This isn't really about numbers. It's a hunt for a super rare kind of stability inside a complex system. And what you find is that for most numbers you try, it just doesn't work. You get these messy, ugly, fractured results. It's like mathematical noise, you know? It's a computation that fails to produce a clean, whole answer. The system just fails to find its harmony. But then, every once in a while, something amazing happens. You plug in a number like 3, right? So you get 2 to the power of 3, which is 8, minus 7, which equals 1. And what's 1? It's a perfect square. It's 1 squared. It's like this moment of perfect clarity. The equation just resolves. And this is what's so wild. These perfect answers, they are unbelievably rare. I mean, out of an infinite number of possibilities for n, only these 5 actually work. These are like unique, almost miraculous little points where this whole complex system clicks into place and finds perfect, whole harmony. Okay, so we've got these little islands of mathematical perfection. But what does that have to do with anything? Well, this is where we make the jump. We're about to see how this exact same idea of a solution shows up, not in abstract logic, but in the very real, tangible world of our own bodies. See, in biology, we find the same fundamental split. It's a clash between two states, flow and blockage. And to help us build this model today, let's give them names, phasia and aphasia. Just think of them as the biological versions of our equation. One's a solution, and the other's a total mess. So, phasia. That's our term for when things are working beautifully. It's the biological version of hitting that perfect square. It's when your internal systems are all in sync. Fluids are flowing, tissues are talking to each other, a thought can actually become a spoken word. Everything just works. That's a body in a state of resolved, functional harmony. Okay, so if phasia is that perfect elegant solution, the perfect square of our biological life, then what happens when the math goes wrong? What does a biological non-solution even look like?
Well, in our model, that's aphasia. It's the physical state of a non-solution. It's what happens when that biological computation fails. The system's ability to flow, to articulate itself, it's just broken. It's that same dissonance, that same rupture we saw in the math, but now it's happening inside our own bodies.
And this breakdown can happen in a couple of key ways. First, you've got what you could call a structural failure. It's hypoplastic. This is like the hardware being faulty from the get-go. The system was just built wrong. But then there's the second way, a dynamic failure, an acute blockage. Now in this case, the hardware is totally fine, but some signal comes along and just shuts the whole process down right in the middle of a calculation.
And this right here is a perfect picture of that dynamic failure. Check this out. A single molecular signal, CGRP, gets sent out. Think of it like a kill switch. It flips and it triggers this biological zipper, it's called VE cadherin, to just seal itself shut. And boom! Instantly the flow of vital fluid is stopped cold. A system that was working perfectly is brought to a dead stop by one little command. Okay, so now it's time to bring these two worlds, the abstract math and the real-life biology, together. And we're going to do it with a very specific, kind of mysterious number that sits right on the fragile edge between order and chaos. And that number is 217.
So remember that super short list of perfect answers for n? Well, one of them was the number 7. And when you plug 7 into our equation, you get 121, which is a perfect square, 11 times 11. It's another moment of that pure mathematical harmony.
All right, so where does 217 fit in? Well, here's the thing. It's not a solution. It's the perfect solution 121 with this extra piece tacked on, an unresolved remainder of 96. So what does that mean? It means it has a perfect answer buried inside it, but it's also stuck to this piece of messy, unresolved complexity. It's not one or the other.
And that is the absolute key. 217 isn't the solution, and it isn't the failure. It represents that razor's edge between them. As a symbol, it's that boundary state, that incredibly tense moment right between the resolved flow of phasia and the messy blockage of aphasia.
Okay, let's wrap this all up. Let's put all the pieces of this thought experiment together. We've got our abstract math pattern, and we've got our concrete biological reality. So what happens when we look at them side by side?
What we end up with is this incredible metaphor. It's really the same fundamental story, just told in two totally different languages. Over here, in the abstract logic of math, the equation gives us this map of rare, perfect solutions versus all the other times it just fails. And then, over here in lived reality, biology shows us the physical version of that, a state of healthy flow, phasia, versus a state of blockage and failure, aphasia.
And that leaves us with one final, kind of mind-bending thought. If this basic pattern, this dance between resolution and rupture, shows up in pure math and in our own bodies, where else is it at work? Could this equation of being be a blueprint for how social systems work, for ecosystems, maybe even for how the cosmos itself is structured? It really makes you wonder if the entire universe is built on this one simple, recurring struggle, the fight between flow and blockage.
All right, welcome back to The Explainer. Today, we're diving into something pretty wild, a hidden connection that ties together fields you'd never think were related. And what's crazy is it all comes down to a single, kind of mysterious number.
Okay, let's just jump right in. I mean, seriously, think about it. A math formula, a blocked artery, and struggling to find the right word? What on earth could possibly link those things? Well, it turns out they all play out the same fundamental story. It's this epic battle between order and chaos, between things flowing smoothly and things getting stuck.
So, at the heart of all this is what you could call a universal drama. On one side, you have integrity, wholeness, things working perfectly, just flowing. And on the other side, you've got rupture, that feeling of being incomplete, that tension, that blockage. And this isn't just an idea. It's a pattern that shows up everywhere. In our bodies, in our thoughts, and even in pure, cold logic.
So, how do we unlock this? Well, the key to understanding this whole universal drama, it actually lies inside a specific number and its very unique properties. And that number is 217. This is our key. But here's the thing, we're not going to treat it just as a number. Think of it more like a symbolic operator.
It's a kind of code that helps us see a fundamental process that's happening all over the place. Okay, so how does this thing actually work? Well, according to this theory, the magic really happens when you break 217 down in one very specific way, as 121 plus 96. And get this, these numbers are not random, at all. They're meant to represent those two big opposing forces we were just talking about. Right, and this is really the core idea of the whole framework. That first piece, 121, well, that's a perfect square, right? 11 times 11. In math, a square is all about completeness, stability. So in this model, it stands for integrity, resolution, everything working as it should. But that other part, 96, that's the remainder, the leftover bit. And that symbolizes all the unresolved tension, that almost but not quite feeling that can lead to a total blockage. So let's see if this idea actually holds up when we look at the real world.
Okay, so let's take this mathematical drama and see how it maps onto something totally different, like the philosophy of language. This is where it gets really interesting. So in the world of language, this model fits like a glove. The 121 side, the perfect square, that's like phasia, that state where your thoughts just flow out perfectly into words. No hesitation, just clear communication. But the 96 side, the remainder, that's aphasia. That is that incredibly frustrating feeling, that blockage when you know exactly what you want to say, but you just cannot find the words. It's like they're stuck. Yeah, that remainder, that 96, is the perfect symbol for that feeling of words being just out of reach. It's the tension you feel right before you speak, or that sense of incompleteness when a sentence just falls apart. Okay, so that's language, but what's really amazing is that this exact same pattern doesn't just show up in our minds, it shows up deep inside our own bodies. In biology, our 121 represents that healthy, easy flow of blood through our vascular system. Everything's open, everything's working. But the 96? In this model, that's a biological stress signal. And if that signal gets too high, it triggers a very specific protein mechanism, people call it a zipper, that literally seals the vessel walls shut. And that causes a really dangerous blockage. I mean, wow, this biological zipper is just such a concrete, real-world example of this abstract idea. It's the tension, the remainder, hitting a critical point and creating a physical rupture in a system that was supposed to be flowing just fine. All right, so let's circle all the way back to where we started, the pure, clean logic of math, where this pattern is maybe the clearest of all. You see, the math is what gives this whole analogy its structure. On one hand, you've got the perfect square, 121. It's complete, it's a solved problem. And on the other, you have the remainder, 96. It's messy, it's unresolved complexity. It's the difference between done and almost but not quite. And what this does is it formalizes the deep, logical pattern that's shared between struggling for a word, having a blocked artery, and a simple math equation. It's literally the same story, just told in 3 completely different languages. Okay, so this pattern is really compelling, right? But here's the big question, the one we have to ask. How do we know this is real and not just a super clever coincidence? Right, this is the crucial part. We have to talk about proof. How can we actually validate this idea and show that it's describing something real and not just, a cool metaphor? Well, the argument is that we can check this by looking for 2 totally different kinds of evidence. It's kind of like how a mathematician would analyze the properties of a number. Okay, first up is what's called structural evidence. Think of these as the fundamental building blocks, the stuff you can literally point to. So in biology, that's the V-Cadherin zipper. It's a real thing. In math, it's the basic properties of 217, like the fact that it's a semi-prime made of 7 times 31. These are the solid, hard facts. But then you have the second type, emergent evidence. And this is the really cool part. These are surprising behaviors and patterns that only show up when you look at the whole system working together. The claim is that our number for tension, 96, keeps popping up as a significant value in models of both linguistic breakdown and biological stress. The fact that the same number emerges in these different areas, well, that's presented as the strongest clue that this isn't random. It suggests a deeper shared logic is really at play. So, where does that leave us? We've gone on this wild journey through math, language, and biology. What's the big takeaway here? Why does any of this matter?
Well, the big takeaway is this. 217, in this way of thinking, isn't just a number. It's a symbolic model. It's a powerful way to think about a process that's happening all the time. How complex systems, whether they're in our heads, our bodies, or on a piece of paper, go from being whole to being under tension, how they break, and maybe how they heal.
So it's like a shared language, right? A symbolic bridge that helps us understand that universal drama of integrity versus rupture. It suggests that the rules that govern a blocked artery might be spookily similar to the rules that govern trying to find the right word. And that leaves us with one last kind of mind-bending thought. If a pattern this deep, this specific, really exists, connecting worlds we thought were totally separate, what other secret connections, what other hidden bridges are just out there waiting for us to find them?